Well, hello and welcome back to my office/studio just outside the DC area, and welcome to the month of June. This week, the first week of June, is off to a pretty fast start as auto manufacturers are showing a lot of new products, and today we're going to go over one product that probably a lot of you have been really anxiously awaiting, the completely redesigned 2021 BMW 4 Series, just the Coupe for now. A convertible and a Grand Coupe will be coming later on along with an M4, and because we are obviously still in an ongoing pandemic, I am showing you guys a first look here from my office, so let's take a first look. Now, the BMW 4 Series was introduced into the lineup back in 2014. It was designed and built to try to better differentiate the 3 Series sedan, coupe, convertible, and of course wagon variants, basically all the two-door variants of a main car like a 3, 5, and a 7. Those will be odd numbers, and then the coupes would be even numbers. It got super confusing, but this is the second generation model, and because BMW introduced an all-new 3 Series last year, known internally as the G20, this new 4 Series is known as the G22. The convertible, of course, will be called the G23, and then the Grand Coupe will be like the G24. They'll be showing those at a later date. Now, of course, we have to start off by talking about the controversial design of this all-new 4 Series. Now, of course, a couple years ago, BMW showed an i4 concept coupe thing that had these massive kidneys on the front that looked like a pair of lungs. They just looked like they were a little bit much. In fact, a lot of people thought it was a joke on BMW's part, but oh boy, did BMW have the last laugh, because now we're looking at the final production version of this car and those massive kidneys are there. In fact, those of you who are offended by the kidneys on the BMW X7 and refreshed 7 Series, the joke's on you, because these kidneys make those kidneys on the big BMWs look like tiny kidney stones. My gosh, this is going to be the talk of 2020 with this controversial design, and BMW is no stranger to controversial designs. Think back to the E65 7 Series and of course the i3. Personally, seeing these vehicles in person, obviously not in the flesh, I have to say, I don't hate the design as much as I thought I would, because the one thing I appreciate about the 4 Series is the fact that BMW is trying very hard to be different, to stop being so conservative with their design language. Now, obviously, they are taking a risk here. They're showing off 2 models here. These are obviously European models, but in the US, we will launch with the 430i, the 430i xDrive with all-wheel drive, and of course the M440i, which will only come with all-wheel drive at launch. Later on, a rear drive version will be coming. Now, looking at the 2 models side by side, the white one is the 430i without the M Sport package, and you can see it has a softer look. The front bumper isn't quite so aggressive. You have slim, skinny LED headlights with an available laser headlight, which I'm not entirely sure is coming to the US because that hasn't been approved yet by the regulators. And then the M440i has a way more aggressive front air intake, way more aggressive front skirt or front splitter. The grille is also painted in a gray finish, which does look a little bit nicer versus the chrome. And split off with that European license plate frame, it just looks odd. There are some photos online of people already doing renderings, taking out that BMW license plates. And then you guys are probably wondering, what if I cut that kidney in half? How would it look? There's actually already photos. I will post it right there. And actually, I think it looks a lot better without the massive kidneys. So again, I see why BMW is doing this. They're taking a risk, of course, with the design, and some of you will either love it or hate it. Go ahead, let's start with the debate in the comment section below. Which one do you guys prefer, the smaller grille or the current or the actual bigger grille? Now, of course, being a 4 Series, this car is a little bit lower and a little bit longer and a little bit wider versus a 3 Series. BMW says it's about 2.2 inches longer and lower versus a 3 Series. Its wheelbase has been stretched by about an inch. It's about an inch wider and lower as well. Overall, compared to the previous generation 4 Series, this new one is a whopping 5.2 inches longer overall. So now it's 187 inches long. It is longer than the 3 Series sedan. I'm not entirely sure why BMW made it so long. They're, I guess, trying to make this thing look more like an 8 Series. It definitely has some style to it. Whether you love it or hate it, I think BMW did a fairly good job with making this thing stand out. The wheels, of course, I like BMW wheels nowadays. The ones on the M440i are 19-inch design, of course. They have that black inner spoke with that 5-spoke split design. I think it's definitely going well with the overall body lines. I'll be curious to see how this thing looks in the Grand Coupe and convertible configurations. From the rear, they basically just took what we saw on the concept version and just made them come to life in a full production spec. The taillights are a lot slimmer versus what you see on a 3 Series. They are a full LED design, and of course, just like a lot of other BMW models, there's a significant difference between the M Sport package and the non-sport package. The white one pictured is the 430i. It definitely looks a little bit more plain Jane compared to the M440i. Some of you may prefer its more traditional oval or circular chrome tailpipes, the less aggressive rear diffuser, although both models seem to appear to have fake rear vents in the bumper, which is similar to what I see in a lot of cars today. The M440i has a deeper rear diffuser, the trapezoidal exhaust tips, which, by the way, the M440i has the same engine, of course, the B58 motor that sounds fantastic in a lot of other BMW products and the Toyota Supra. So this should be a really fun and fast car when it goes on sale at the end of this year. Now let's talk a little bit about what's going on underneath the hood. I've been mentioning the 430i and the M440i. So as you guys probably guessed, it's going to share a powertrain, of course, with the BMW 3 Series. Starting with the 430i, it has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder known internally as the B46 engine. It now makes about 7 more horsepower versus the previous generation 430i, topping out at 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. BMW says that should be good to get you to 60 in around 5.5 seconds. Decent numbers. The all-wheel drive model will probably shave a 1/10 of a second off that time. It all goes out through a one-choice only 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. BMW has discontinued the 6-speed manual for both models for the 2021 model year. They are saying a manual will be coming back for the M4, which will be, of course, at a later date. Now, of course, 255 horsepower isn't much nowadays in the luxury space. So, of course, there's the M440i, which has the 3-liter turbocharged straight 6, known internally as the B58 engine. Now it makes 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. That's an increase of about 62 horsepower and 39 pound-feet of torque from the previous 440i, which didn't have an M in front of it. Now, of course, that improved horsepower and torque means that this car will now, BMW says, get to 60 in 4.3 seconds. That's a 0.3 second improvement. And as you guys know, BMW is very conservative with their numbers. I've seen an M340i do that dash in about 3.8 seconds. So it should be much quicker than BMW's actual estimates, because they even say the top speed is only 155 for that M440i models. Now, just like the 430i, this only gets paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and their xDrive all-wheel drive system will be standard for now. A rear drive model will be coming at a later date. Now, the manual transmission may be gone, however, the M440i does introduce a new 48-volt mild hybrid system. Now, we've seen a system like this on some other Audi and Mercedes products. Essentially, what it does is it replaces the traditional starter and alternator with this hybrid system, where it recaptures the kinetic energy that's lost from the brakes, puts it back into a battery pack, and then that battery pack provides additional grunt whenever you're demanding hard acceleration or when you're at low speeds. Mostly what you'll probably end up feeling is just a smoother transition between the engine shutting off and the engine restarting. Because remember, a lot of cars have start-stop nowadays, and a lot of people really don't like them because they're jerky and they're not smooth. I imagine this is going to really fix that, but BMW says this will not be adding any additional horsepower. And I also imagine this 48-volt system will eventually find its way into other BMW products with the B58 engine. Moving on to the interior, BMW has been trying to make their interiors stand out more by adding new colors, new textures. In fact, if you guys look at the inside of the new 4 Series, it looks identical to a 3 Series. And the 3 Series interior is nice, but I wouldn't call it class leading. It is filled with enough luxury and tech and premium materials to justify its BMW badge, but there are parts of the interior of the 3 Series that I noticed that had a little bit of cheapness in some of the speaker grills and some of the plastics around, things that you touch. So looking at the inside of the 4 Series, it looks practically identical. You have that same Live Cockpit Professional digital instrument panel in front of the driver behind the steering wheel, which I'm not particularly a fan of the design. I was hoping BMW would differentiate the interior a little bit more. Looking to the right, you can see iDrive 7.0 will be standard. This is the latest version of BMW's iDrive infotainment system. It will have a next generation version of BMW's Maps for their navigation system, which they say navigation will be standard on every models. And because this is iDrive 7.0, you do have features like over-the-air updates, so the car's computer will be constantly updated whenever there's something new available. And BMW has finally introduced wireless wireless Android Auto to complement the wireless Apple CarPlay, which is definitely a great thing for all of you, Android users out there. The rest of the interior, they only showed maybe one picture of this car. The interior with the brown leather. The shifter doesn't have the glass controls that you see on some of the other BMW products. You have the same steering wheel. So not too much to talk about with the interior. I imagine the space obviously is going to be less versus the 3 Series sedan, but it is going to be most likely a nice place to spend time. But in my eyes, it doesn't look like the class leading interior like what you get in a lot of Mercedes products or Volvo products. Now, surprisingly, BMW already had final pricing available on the 4 Series Coupe, just the Coupe model, just the two-door, of course. The base 430i will start at $45,600. Now, that doesn't include the xDrive all-wheel drive, which is typically $2,000 more. If you guys are looking for that M440i, you'll have to pay at least $58,500. Now, that is plus a $995 destination charge for both models. And when you look at the pricing of the new version versus the old one, obviously it's gotten more expensive. The 430i is about $700 more expensive versus last year's 2020 model. The M440i is a whopping $5,000 more expensive. So it's definitely pricier, but you do get about 62 more horsepower and a lot more tech, a lot more of an aggressive look. Now, personally, I liked the look of the 4 Series, the old one. I thought that it still looked relatively fresh. I'll have to wait until I see this new version in person. It's slowly starting to grow on me, but I'll have to reserve my final judgment until I see it out on the road. So hopefully BMW will be sending me one soon to test, or I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be any media drives later this year, but just kind of keep in touch with our social networks where you can see all the latest cars that we're testing. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this Redline first look on the 2021 BMW 4 Series Coupe. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.